أصحابي الطيبين ومن استنى بسنتهم إلى يوم الدين ثم أما بعد. So, inshallah, today, bidnillahi ta'ala, we're going to touch on some of the takeaways and lessons from Surah Al-Kawthar, which we covered last week. So, I checked with a couple of y'all, you're right, and then I checked with the video. We did finish the surah, but, one of the important things that you want to be able to do, or you should be trying to do, and every Muslim should be trying to do when they read the Quran, is what lessons do I learn from this? Not just what does this mean, right? And be like, oh, that's interesting, that was a story, or oh, that's interesting, Allah said that about the people of paradise, or that He said that. But you'd be like, what does that mean for me? What does that mean I have to do? Or what does that mean I need to believe? Or what does that mean I need to stay away from? Or what does that mean I need to be reflecting on and thinking about in my heart, right? So we want to make sure we get at least some of those, some takeaways and lessons, right? Same deal. And then we're going to start with Surah Al-Kafirun today. Surah Al-Kafirun, or Surah Qul Ya Ayyuhal Kafirun. So before we do, I also do want to mention, I'm doing a little catch up. So I gave y'all homework last week, but that was for, if I'm not mistaken, Surah Al-Ma'un. And then today, sorry. And then today, I've already uploaded the homework for Surah Al-Kawthar, right? So, for Surah Al-Kawthar, and then it's going to include whatever we discussed and talked about last week, and then what we're going to discuss right now. So you want to make sure that you're, on point and sticking with us right now. So, Tayyib. So you should have your notes in front of you right now. What did we cover last week with Surah Al-Kawthar? What did we cover last week with Surah Al-Kawthar? For those who were here. Retouch. Okay, khalas. The names of the surah. Give me two of them. What does Al-Kawthar mean? Niyah. What does Al-Kawthar mean? What else does it mean? Just a river, huh? So if we were walking by a river, we'd be like, oh, Al-Kawthar. A river in paradise that's promised to the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam by Allah. Okay, khalas. Right? It would suffice to say a river in paradise. If you just said Al-Kawthar, river in paradise, that would be acceptable. If you added, mashallah, Nia, she went the extra mile, but it's one that's specifically promised to the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Khair wa barakah. All right. Now, you've studied Al-Kawthar before, the tafsir? Yes. That wasn't my question. Have you studied the tafsir of Surah Al-Kawthar before? Ever? Huh? No problem. Khalas. Abdurrahman, were you here? Yes, sir. Bismillah. Another name or meaning of, Al-Kawthar. Nahar? I'm sorry. So, not another name for the... What's that? A whole lot of good. A tremendous amount of good. All right? Khalas. So, keep it moving. So, remember, there are multiple names. You will need to know all those names. How many did y'all get? 3? Khalas. Make sure you know all 3 of them, all right? Tayyib. Next. What else did we cover aside from the names of the surah? Did I call you Abdurrahman? Oh, because you are Abdurrahman. Abdurrahman, blah, blah. Abdurrahman, what else did we cover? Before that, I want you to go in order. The names of the surah. I'm sorry. Aside from the names, what was the other thing about that surah that we covered? Go ahead, Bilal, help us out, or help him out.
We also learned the virtues of the surah.
The virtues of the surah. And I'm sorry if I wasn't clear in my question. What I mean is, okay, this is one topic under Surah Al-Kawthar, the other topic, all right? Khalas, that was my fault. Khair, tell me then, Abdurrahman, okay? Now you can redeem yourself. What is one virtue of that surah, Surah Al-Kawthar? One? Allahu Akbar. Tell you, even if you don't know what virtue means, right? But we said that that means it's something unique about that surah, something that is blessed about that surah, something that makes that surah stand out. What's unique about that surah? So, for example, a virtue of Surah Al-Fatiha, it's the greatest surah in the Quran. A virtue of Ayatul Kursi, it is the greatest verse in the Quran. A virtue of Surah Al-Ikhlas, it is equivalent to 1/3 of the Quran. Those are things that are stand out, that make that surah unique, and shows like the intrinsic or extra blessings in that surah. So, blessings or virtues of Surah Al-Kawthar.
It's about the river the Prophet drink from.
That's the meaning. Or like, what is it about?
If you drink from it, you can experience thirst again.
Yes, Saddam. Jazakallah khair. Okay, tell you. Anybody else? Yes, sister. No. You, I'm looking dead at you. Come on. Okay, mashallah. Jazakallah khair. Tayyib. Khalas. So, the names of the surah, the virtues of the surah, the general meaning of the surah, and we broke it down linguistically. We went through each word, wrote it up on the board for everybody to see. So you should have those things down. Like right now, everybody should be able to answer me. Why? Because I'm not asking you to answer me from your memory. I'm asking you to just do what? I'm asking everybody right now. I'm asking you a question, not rhetorical. I'm asking you to do what right now? Just read from your notes. All you got to do is read from your notes, which is an indication. If you don't have any answers for me, that means what? No, sister, what does that mean? If you ain't got no answers for me right now, what that mean? That means you weren't taking notes. All right? So you got to stay with us. Khalas. So as far as takeaways and lessons, and I want to try something a little bit different. I'm going to say the surah again. We're going to recite the surah. And I want y'all to reflect and think, what are some lessons and some takeaways, right? And there's namely two things you want to put together. The meaning of the surah and the reason why it was revealed. Thinking on those two things, what lessons can we learn? So, real quick, Zakaria, can you just read for us Surah Al-Kawthar real quick?
The whole surah?
Yes, sir. Okay, so Inna a'ataynaka al-kawthar. What does that mean, y'all? That's just inna. A'atayna. We've given you. Given you what? Did he give it to me? Did he give it to you? Who did he give it to, y'all? Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All right, tell you. So he gave him al-kawthar. And then you got to think, bring to mind, what is al-kawthar? Allah gave him an abundant amount of good, a whole lot of good. And he gave him a river in paradise, right? We also said that Al-Kawthar, right, was what? We said that already. Huh? It's a pool to be drinking from. It's a pool, right? That's given to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar, right? Fasalli li rabbika wanhar. What does fasalli mean? To pray. So like pray like later on. Pray what? Pray now. Pray immediately. How does that connect with the first part of the surah? With the first ayah? Huh? No problem. I'll just keep moving and we'll ask it again. Fasalli, pray right now, pray immediately. Wanhar. What does wanhar mean? Sacrifice. So right now, prayer and sacrifice. Why? Why prayer and sacrifice immediately? As a way of what? Huh? I'm sorry, you got to speak up. To get the good stuff? Well, but look at Allah already said, it's past tense. A'tayna. Right? It's past, like I've given it to you already. So it's not to get the good. To thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is saying, I have given you this tremendous amount of good. I've given you this river in paradise. I've given you this pool that you and your followers will be able to drink from. That the drink from there is as white as milk, or as snow, or as cool as snow, as fragrant as misk. I've given you this tremendous gift. So pray and sacrifice as what, everybody? As a means of what? Thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, showing gratitude, being appreciative of what gifts Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed on the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Y'all with me so far? All right, tell you. Inna shani'aka huwa al-abtar. Inna shani'aka. What's that mean, y'all? Everybody, what does that mean? That's abtar. Inna shani'aka. Huh? Surely, your enemies. Inna is the surely part, or verily. Certainly, it's a form of emphasis. Shani'aka, those who oppose you, your enemies, jazakallah khair. Huwal abtar. They're the ones who are cut off. Okay. Now this comes to the part where we said the meaning of the surah, which we just went through, and I said two things, right? The second thing is, why was this surah revealed? Because really the answer is right in there. Why was this surah revealed? What was the means? Yes. He might be cut off, but he's still going to get something from Allah? No. What? In another way. What's the story behind the surah? What's the story? Yes. One second. This right here, it just constantly makes a small noise. Y'all can't really hear it real good because I'm right under it. It's like, yeah, really loud for me. Uh-huh. Not all of them, just at that moment. I mean, we mentioned as a broader statement, like, that he also had lost all his sons, but in this particular occasion, just one. Okay, so all of that, jazakallah khair, that's some extra information too. But the main thing is what? The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, his son died. All right? The reason why this surah was revealed, his son died. And what was his name? Which, by the way, you do need to know. This is the reason for revelation. That should have been one of the headings in your notes. Reason for revelation, or you can think of it like the story behind this surah. The Prophet ﷺ's son, Abdullah, died, At-Tahir. The Quraysh, right? They mocked the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and said he's cut off. And what was the word that they used to say that he's cut off? Abtar. Because they would call anybody who had no sons, right, that someone is abtar. And Jazakallah khair, the sister, she explained what? If you don't have a son, all right, or if you don't have someone, like you don't have someone to continue your name, you don't have someone to continue your legacy, your story, who inherits from you, you know what I'm saying, and keeps building from wherever you left off, khalas, right? Okay, so now you want to combine that, knowing that, and then the meaning of the surah. What lessons are we learning from here? I want you to think about that. Take a minute or so. You can even talk to the person next to you. But what lessons are we learning there? Allah is saying, they're saying you're cut off. The Quraysh. Ha ha. And they're mocking and making fun of. Ha ha, your son died. Whoa. That's what they were doing. That's the whole point of them even mentioning that, is to mock him and make fun of him in his time when he would. Because normally when you have a family member die, a close one, a loved one dies, the person who is left behind, they are in a state of what? What do they call that normally? Grief and mourning. And normally, right, the kind, empathetic, respectful thing to do would be, I'm sorry for your loss. That's tough. I can't imagine what that would feel like. Some kind, good words to support that person, right? But that's not what they want to do, because they're his enemies. They're fighting with him, right? Well, they're not fighting with him at this point, but they're trying to do everything they can to delegitimize him. And so instead of having words of comfort, they're doing what? They're mocking and making fun of him. Your son died. Look at you, so-called prophet. You ain't no prophet. Come on. Look, if you was really a prophet, how come your son died? How come God didn't save your son? Huh? You're so-called. You understand? All right. So now, what's the message that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is, or what are some lessons, that we can take away from that? This is important. You got to be thinking. I'll start with one, okay? A lesson that we can learn. Is a son dying? Is that a challenge? Yes. A child dying? That's difficult? Mm-hmm. Okay. In spite of difficulties that the Prophet ﷺ experienced, that does not mean that Allah is not there supporting him. That's one. Because you can't deny that his son died, and that's hard. Right? That's why they think they have an in to make fun of him. But Allah is saying, Allah is not disregarding that. Yet your son died, but I'm still here supporting you. Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar. They're saying you're cut off, but just because your son died doesn't mean that you're cut off from me. Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar. I have given you a tremendous amount of good. You may have lost something here, but I've given you a tremendous amount of good. Something that is far beyond that. Because look, as Muslims, we believe what? If a child dies, Muslim child dies, by default, where are they going? To Jannah, to paradise. So did the Prophet ﷺ, even though his son died, that might be bitter in this life. Did he really lose out though? No. That just means my son got a guaranteed ticket to Jannah. And in spite of that, Allah has given me a tremendous amount of good. So, to summarize it, even in challenge, just because someone is challenged, does not mean Allah is not supporting them. Just because someone is challenged or going through some difficulty in their life, that's not an indication that Allah doesn't love you, that Allah doesn't support you, that Allah is not there for you in different ways. Case in point, look at what's happening in Palestine. It would seem like what? Hum abtarun, that they are cut off. Would it not seem like that? If you think about it materially, no government supporting them. Doesn't seem like any Muslim countries helping them, right? They're dying in the thousands. It would seem like they are cut off, right? But again, if you go back to our iman, our faith, our belief, we would believe that what? If someone, right, dies defending their land, if someone dies believing in La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah and fighting in that cause, right? Our belief is that they are martyrs, right? The Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Man qatala or qutila duna malihi," right? That whoever is wa ahli wa mali, someone who has fought and they die defending their land, their family, their wealth, their deen, that person is what? Sudais? A shaheed. Al-Muhim, my point though is that what? It would seem that they're cut off, but Allah is giving them something, bidnillahi ta'ala, greater. So I summarized the lesson though. Did y'all understand that? An idea? Even though hardships, that doesn't mean hardships and challenges does not equate Allah doesn't love you. The lesson is what? Allah loves and still supports the believers. So I want y'all to take again another minute or so. Just think about it. Talk to the person next to you. What are some lessons that y'all might have benefited? Just still take a minute and then y'all can give the answer. So maybe you want to jot it down. Whatever. Matter of fact, I insist. I want you to write it down so that you don't forget it or, whatever. Come up with at least 3. Yes, 3. Excuse me. Why don't you turn around and go with Bilal, all right? So I would like for you sisters to talk to each other, inshallah. I want you to partner up and what are some lessons or some takeaways that y'all can have from the surah? So if you could, brother, I'd appreciate if you know what I'm saying? Right, no, not with those two, just with Bilal. So not with the whole group. I just said, yeah, with Bilal. Yeah, because those two are talking. Yeah, my fault. Touche, you're right. You're right. Okay, Tayyib. So we want to bring it back in, inshallah. So we're just going to go around. And actually, I'll start over here on this side. And I just need at least one of y'all, right? Both of y'all don't have to speak from the pairs. Tayyib. So give us just a couple, all right? Abdurrahman, Bilal, what's up? No, not what I said, though. I said 3 other. Help your partner out, brother. What's up?
Worship is not hating Allah. That's not.
Right. That's what I said. I said come up with 3 others on your own. It would have been different if you hadn't made it, though. I know I said if you hadn't made it, it would have been different. But I see you, though. No. I'm sorry. Worship. Hey, excuse me. So you don't make sure it's sisters. So you're not repeating what they said, right? Go ahead again.
Worship Allah for the amount of mercy that you'll be blessed with.
Worship Allah for the amount of mercy that you'll be blessed with. Could you explain that? What do you mean? Yeah. What's up, brother? Brother, may Allah have mercy on you. We are waiting, Akhi. So if you're not sure, no problem. Just say that and we can move on. Right? Okay, tell you. So then, can you try? Just think about it right now. What do you think that means? I mean, you wrote it, right? So what does that mean, brother? Khalas, no problem. Keep it moving. You said 3, right? So what's the other one? Khalas, jazakallah khair. Sudais.
It's like, I guess, kind of similar to what they said, but I wrote, even though it's like basic necessities to us that we use every day, like, remember the goodness Allah has given us, because when Allah said He gave us a tremendous amount of good, like, you could also interpret it as, like, other things He gave us, like our eyes, our ability to walk, our hands.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's things that a lot of people might take for granted, but, like, without, they'd suffer.
So would you say something like eyes, hands,
Yeah.
right, etc. Those things that you mentioned. Would you consider those things to be a tremendous amount of good? Let's say, for example, if you were blind, do you think the person who was blind, they would be like, I wish?
Yeah, I never want to be blind, ever.
So do you think this is extremely valuable?
Yes.
Having hands, is that extremely valuable? Is that a tremendous
Yes.
amount of good?
Yeah.
To be able to, the sensation of touch, to be able to feel, to recognize like something is hot, cold, or whatever, or a loved one, shaking hands with a friend that you haven't seen in a long time, etc. Those are tremendous amounts of good. And I think you put it in an excellent way, saying that what? Oftentimes people take it for granted, but making sure that you do what for those things?
You're always like thankful of Allah and remember those things in your worship.
So then, being grateful to Allah for those tremendous amounts of good that oftentimes people take for granted, how do you show that gratitude? You said keeping it in mind, that's one, I'm sorry.
Those things that Allah gave you for good things. Using your hands to feed the homeless, or using your eyes to like read the Quran, using your mouth to compliment people.
فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. Right? Allah gave you all this stuff, so pray and sacrifice. Jazakallah khair, man. Ahsant. Barakallah fi. So that was one. We're just going to keep it moving, though. Go ahead, another one.
Just because a loved one died, that doesn't mean Allah isn't with you.
Again, you're repeating what I said. I asked you to come up with 3 other ones. Jazakallah khair. So we don't have that happen again, because that's the second time. Please don't repeat what I said. That was a lesson that I mentioned. Jazakallah khair.
It's glad tidings for the Prophet.
It's glad tidings for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But is that a lesson, though?
Not really.
So remember, a takeaway for Abdurrahman. Abdurrahman sits down, boom. He opens the Mus'haf, boom. He reads Surah Al-Kawthar. All right, what should Abdurrahman do? That's what we want. Sudais said, you know what? Even though the story behind this is that he's talking to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this happened in his life, but I learned from this, I should be appreciative for what I have. There's a lot of things that Allah has given me. There might be some other stuff I'm at a loss, but there's a lot of things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me, and I should show that gratefulness in a real, tangible, practical way. Gratitude. Khalas. So what is a lesson that Abdurrahman learns? That's what I'm trying to ask.
That
What's that?
Allah has the prophets back.
Okay, that Allah has the prophets back. I like that. Take that a step further. What does that mean for Abdurrahman? Because again, that's about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but there's a lesson in that though. Help us out, y'all. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's got Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's back. What lesson do we learn from that? Because is this surah and the Quran, is it only for Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So then what lesson can we learn from that, Abdurrahman? Huh? Has the back, he's supporting and helping who? The Muslims. He's got their back. Right? Because Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's representative of Islam and the believers. He's the leader of the believers, right? So if Allah is supporting him, Allah's got his back, Allah's given him glad tidings, then the people who follow him, they should understand that what? Allah's got our back. Allah's supporting us. Those who follow Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, those who submit and follow Islam, they are not what? They're not cut off. Now, alhamdulillah, jazakallah khair. You get an A for effort, brother. Go ahead, sis. The what? Interesting. The enemies of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam are enemies of Allah. What lesson do we learn from that? What takeaway do you have for your life? So because they're his enemies, we should follow Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Tell you, that was one. What's the other one?
You should sacrifice only for Allah.
You should only sacrifice for Allah. Good. That's a takeaway. That's something you tangibly you can go back and do. Or be careful and mindful of that I don't do X, Y, and Z. That's what I mean by takeaway or lesson. Good. Jazakallah khair. Yeah. One more. There was three, right? No, sister. Khalas. Was there anything else?
Increasing our ibadah.
Increasing your ibadah. Why? What's the lesson?
Because turn to prayer and the lesson that's why God is increasing our ibadah, so we should show gratitude. Basic, some of it's taken from what you said.
Okay, khair. So all I want you to do, which is good, I want you to make connections. We should increase in our ibadah. But where's the lesson? Why? Because God given us so much good. So you want to make that connection. He gave us this good, so we should. Now, tell you, jazakallah khair. Yes.
Everything that happens to us, there's a reason behind it.
What's that?
Everything that happens to us, there's a reason behind it.
Okay, interesting. How did you pull that from that surah? Like, I want you to show where that lesson's coming from.
When the prophet, like, son died, there was a reason for that.
Did we discuss what the reason for that is?
No.
Okay, and is that in the surah? So, first of all, that statement is true. Everything that happens, there's a reason for it. That's part of the belief in the creed of the Muslims. What is that belief called, y'all? Everybody, what's that belief called? Belief in what? In qadr, destiny. But is that what we're taking from the surah, though?
Yeah, kind of.
How so?
Because, Allah told the prophet, like, when his son died, like, he's already going to Jannah. And, like,
Really? That's said in the surah?
no.
Did we even discuss that when we talked about the story behind the surah being revealed? Was any of that mentioned? That don't worry, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, your son is guaranteed paradise. Was that mentioned in the hadith that we said? No, I addedly mentioned that to show that, to explain, like, even though something happened to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that doesn't mean that Allah is not supporting him. All right, so we don't want to just plum pick here and there things that we know about Islam and try to mix it in a cocktail, shake it up, and hopefully it'll be something palpable to drink. All right? What I want is specifically from Surah Al-Kawthar, What lesson do you learn from that surah?
When you lose something in this dunya, it will turn something greater in the afterlife. When you lose something in this dunya, it will turn into something greater in the afterlife.
When you do some good in this life,
Or when you lose something.
when you lose something. Khair, we'll keep it moving, inshallah. We'll keep it moving. Tayyib. Sisters in the back.
You said all the challenges people the most and also that
Okay. All right. Jazakallah khair. Khalas. So here's some things then we want you to add to that. All right. I want you to keep those down. If you heard anything from anybody else, take note of those. Right. But here's something that I want to tell you. Number one, right, we learned from this surah is the importance of showing gratitude. The importance of showing gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is one of the lessons that we learn. The Prophet ﷺ, he gave, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, excuse me, gave Prophet Muhammad ﷺ al-Kawthar. You should be writing this down. Allah yarham walidayk. You should be taking note of this. Number one, takeaways and lessons from the surah. The importance of showing gratitude to Allah. Number two, that the Prophet Muhammad, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, prayers and sacrifice should only be for him. No, I cannot. You need to ask somebody else. Number three, right, is that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and by extension the believers, are not cut off. They are supported by Allah. The believers are not cut off. They are supported by Allah. That's a lesson that we learn. Abdurrahman, ila khair kusiyo. No, you need to get up and get another one. Otherwise, you're going to miss half of the notes or half of the things that are being said, Akhi. No.
What is number two?
You got to ask somebody else. No. Number four. And this is not taken directly from the surah, but it is a lesson. There's a hadith that we read that day where it's mentioned about the details and the description of the pool that the believers and the followers of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam will be allowed to drink from below. Right? Now, you got to put your pencil in your hand. That's what's going to help you with that. Now. And so, subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ, as he is observing and seeing his followers being brought to drink from the pool, and mind you, this is on Yawm al-Qiyamah, this is on the Day of Judgment, and this is only for his followers, there will be some who are herded away and prevented and blocked by angels. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ will say, they are my followers, they are my followers. And that angel will respond to him, you do not know, speaking to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, you do not know ma ahdathu ba'dak. You don't know what they innovated after you. You do not know what they innovated after you. So this is, if you were to read the tafsir of Surah Al-Kawthar, undoubtedly you'll come across this hadith. So one of the lessons or takeaways from that is the danger of religious innovations. The dangers of religious innovations. I'll repeat that again. The dangers of religious innovations. Now, all right. So what are some of those dangers? That it will, innovating in the religion, and we should explain what that means, is that Islam, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, was laid out completely. Islam is laid out completely. Islam is perfect. Okay? How do we pray? How do we fast? Hajj, charity, jihad, studying, hijab, all of that is laid out. The Prophet ﷺ explained everything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, مَا فَرَّطْنَا فِي الْكِتَابِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. We haven't left out anything from the book. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said what? تَرَكْتُ أُمَّتِي عَلَى مَحَجَّةِ الْبَيْضَاءِ لَيْلُهَا كَنَهَارِهَا لَا يَزِيغُ عَنْهَا إِلَّا هَالِكٌ. I have left my nation, my ummah, my followers on a illuminated path. The day of it and the night of it are synonymous. Meaning, even if it was nighttime, the path is so clear, you'd see it easily. And obviously, if you saw a path in the daytime, is it easy to see? Yes or no?
Yeah.
But it's so clear, it doesn't matter if it's day or night. It's the same. That's how clear the way, the path, right, that the Prophet ﷺ laid out, it's that clear. Day or night, it doesn't matter. It's too clear. And nobody deviates from it except that they will what? Illa halik, except that they'll be destroyed. And one of the consequences of that destruction is that you won't be able to drink from the hawd of the Prophet ﷺ. And if you're not drinking from the hawd, you're being prevented from drinking from the hawd, or from the pool, or al-kawthar. What does that mean is next to happen? What does that mean the next thing is to happen?
You're not going to gym?
You're going to go, oh, that's okay. You innovate in the religion. You can't drink from this pool, but you can still get in.
I just said, I said you're not going to gym.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said you're going to Jannah. I was like, oh, that's completely, that wasn't the way I was going. No. So to innovate in the religion would be to say something like it's 2023, right? Yes, for example, the, what do you call it? The rainbow team, right? It wasn't acceptable back then, but it's, you know what I'm saying? It's a different time now. And if somebody wants to do that and be Muslim, what's wrong with that? Why can't we just modify and, you know what I'm saying? Just change it up. You know, love is love. Or for example, somebody says, you know what I mean? You know, what's wrong with music? If I just, you know, use music like, without haram statements. It's just jazz music. It's just classical music. What's wrong with that? You know what? Why can't update the fatwas, the scholars, what, the Sahaba said? Why can't we just, you know what I mean? Like, it's 2023. Come on, man. Let's just change that up and be like, that's no problem. They start changing, adding or subtracting to the religion, as opposed to changing themselves to fit into the religion. That would be innovating in the religion, right? Adding a holiday, adding some different practices. You know what? We're going to fast on this day every month, and you have to do it because, the Prophet ﷺ is better than us, even though he didn't do it. But because we're so less than him, we got to do some extra stuff. So we're going to do this holiday, or excuse me, this fasting every day. But don't you could do that on Mondays and Thursdays, but that's not enough. We're going to do Monday and Thursday, but we also going to do every Friday. Even though the Prophet ﷺ said you shouldn't fast on Friday. But you know what I'm saying? But we need that extra barakah. He's better than us, so we're just going to add it. It's not that big a deal. Again, that would be adding to the religion, all right? So anyways, I'm not asking you to write all those things I just said. The lesson is what? The danger of religious innovations. The danger of religious innovations prevents you from drinking from the hawd. Dangers of religious innovations or bid'ah prevents you from drinking from the hawd of the Prophet ﷺ. Tayyib? And so we're going to stop there and we're going to jump into Surah Al-Kawthar, Kafirun, after y'all have a break. We give y'all a 5-minute break, inshallah. طيب وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه اجمعين واخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.